Hello and welcome to the presentation on the history chapter The Age of Industrialization. Industrialization, the coming of the industries, the period from approximately 1780 to 1820 40 is called the Age of Industrialization. Industrialization refers to the coming of the machines which made it easier for the people to have their production and increase the surplus and make it available to the people who need it. The dawn or the coming of industries, especially in the period in 1900, especially publisher E.T. Paul, he produced a music book that had a picture on the cover page and it announced the dawn of the century, the beginning of anything. At the center of the picture is a goddess like, an angel like figure, and she is representing the progress or the development, bearing the flag of the new century. She is gently perched on a wheel with the wings, symbolizing time which has progressed. This image is imprinted on the wheel, and her flight is taking her into the new era, the future. Floating about behind her are the signs of progress, the railway, the camera, machines, printing press, factories, so on and so forth. So, here we are studying about all these aspects in this particular period of age of industrialization. What happened before the period of the industries? When factories were not there, how was the production taking place? So, proto industrialization, this period was a period when there was large scale production still happening and it was meeting the international market, and still no machine was available. The period even before the coming up of factories, where large scale production was happening to meet the international markets and it was not based on factories, is called as proto industrialization. It was controlled by merchants, and the goods were produced by a vast number of producers working within their family farms, not in factories. Merchants could not expand production within towns. They moved to the countryside. There was, because the people in the rural areas, they had ample of labor force and they were willing to do, because this was here in urban crafts and there were trade guilds. The trade guilds were merchant associations, and these merchant associations, they had certain rules, and also they had monopoly. Monopoly means single trade. No other person could enter or modify their rules and regulations. The rules were fixed by the merchant associations, which were called as trade guild. Guild is an association group of people with certain rules and regulations. They produced in this particular group, they had their rules and regulations, they fixed the prices, they addressed the needs of those people, and they did the most important thing, that is they restricted the newcomers, new merchants. It was difficult for them to enter and set up their business in the towns. So they turned to the countryside. This phase referred as the phase of industrialization, where even before the coming of factories, there was still production going on at the countryside. Here we can see the people producing. The coming up of factories. In 1730, the earliest factories in England came up. England is the first country to be industrialized, and Europe is the first continent to be industrialized. The first symbol of the new era was cotton. The series of inventions in the 18th century increased the efficacy, the efficiency of production at each stage, the quality of production. Richard Arkwright created the cotton mill, and the mill production of the cotton started, which allowed a more careful supervision over the production process. Slowly, the mills started imposing the British landscape, and the smaller workshops were overlooked. So now production became multiple. Lot of production was happening. Richard Arkwright created a water frame which could spin multiple threads at a time, and this has enhanced the yarn making, and the production process were more simplified. Late 19th century, the production boomed, it became multiplied. By 1760s, 2.5 million pounds of raw cotton imported by the Britain for the cotton industry. Britain had lot of demand. 1787 increased, the same amount increased to 22 million pounds. This increase is because of lot of changes. The phase of industrialization has brought about a lot of change. And how rapid was this progress of industrialization? The most dynamic industries in India were clearly cotton and metals. First, we shall focus on cotton industry, then the metal industry. The new industries could not easily be displaced. The traditional industries, they were still existing. Technological changes have to be adapted, and these technological changes were adapted slowly because new technology was expensive. The machines were often breaking down, and the people who could repair were very few available. It was not easy to get them repaired. They were not as effective and efficient as the inventors and manufacturers claimed. There were some defects. So, this is one of the questions which can be expected. Why were the entrepreneurs or the producers reluctant to buy the new technology? Because the new technology is expensive, was breaking down, and repair was difficult. Hand labor and steam power in the Victorian Britain was no shortage of human labor. Therefore, the industries did not want to introduce machines which required large capital investment. So, when man was able to do the production which the machine could do, and their investment cost is less, payment is less, so they didn't want to go for technology, they wanted to manage with the human resource. Many seasonal industries operated during the times of festivals, and usually most of the people preferred the hand labor. The handmade goods came to be symbolized as refinement and class. There was perfection in it. There were better finished goods individually produced by the person who was skilled at producing it, and carefully they were designed. If you look at the cotton cloth, it had beautiful designs, intricate designs, very catchy, attractive. So that demand could never be replaced by the machine. Man's efficiency could never be lost. Machine made goods were for export to the colonies. There were large number of people who were colonized There was no machinery or capital investment in their country, and so they were looking forward, since the population was more, and they were looking forward for their needs to be met, and this cloth was available which came from the machine at a cheaper cost. The quality was low, poor, but still they were able to buy, and the price is also low because it is produced by the machine. Seasonal demands, during different seasons, these all works were done. Gas work was done, breweries, the drinks, wine making, and all during the cold seasons, cold month. Bookbinders were there, printers were there during the Christmas, candle making. Many such kind of jobs were there where people were doing. During the repair shops were there, during the winters waterfront was there. Preference to hand labor was in fluctuation, because during the particular season only they had the job, remaining times they had to be without job. How was the life of the workers then? The labors were available in abundance in the market, which affected the lives of the workers. We know that when the availability is more, the demand for them or that product will fall. So, the busy season, the workers were having lot of work, and after the season closed, they became jobless. In the early 19th century, wages increased, but the proportion or the production of the goods also increased only to meet the demand during that particular period, either to meet the colonial demand or during the seasonal periods. The life of the workers, we can clearly see the image. The people who left their homes had to stay at different places to find a job for themselves. The best times till the mid 19th century, 10% of the urban population was extremely poor. Economic slump in the 1830s, unemployment went up to 35 to 75%. Slump is a fall. They did not have the basic financial capability to meet their demands. They were helpless, no job, no money, abject to poverty. Spinning jenny introduced in the woolen industry. The women who were surviving on hand spinning, they felt helpless. Their basic livelihood was lost, and so they attacked the uh, woolen machines, the spinning machines, which came as a competition for their livelihood. Building activities intensified in the cities after 1840s. This was other alternative job which they could get. Greater opportunities they were getting. Now new railway stations came up, railway lines were set up, underground tunnels were dug, drainage and sewages were laid, where river embankments were constructed, and all these people who came as workers, now they were getting job in all these areas. And by 1840s, again they get some kind of employment, and they were getting some source of livelihood for themselves. Industrialization in the colonies, the age of the Indian textiles. If we move to the Indian textiles and the production in India, before the age of the industries, silk and cotton from India was dominating in the international market. The quality was so fine and so good that vibrant sea trade continued from India, and it operated in many of the uh, countries, and this was before the colonial period, pre-colonial period. The fluctuation in the production happened. How did this fluctuation happen? From a large scale production, there was a loss. Who came to make a fall in their production, and what affected their international market trade? Let us see. So trade in India and the merchants who were supplying the finance and who were also called as bankers, they were financing the production, they were giving job for the producers, carrying the goods, supplying the exports, and they were the supply merchants, or the merchants were financing, making the people, skilled people, to do the goods, make the goods, manufacture the goods, collect from them, and then they used to supply to the international market. To within the country also they operated their trade, and also they exported. They gave advances to the weavers. The weavers who had deficiency of capital, they gave advances. This meant that there was job for the weavers, there was livelihood for the weavers. They procured or collected the woven cloth from the weavers, from the villagers, and then carried to the ports to supply to the market, their targeted market areas. The brokers at the ports, bug shippers, and export merchants, they negotiated the price. The buying and the goods and supply of these merchants, these supply merchants, this was operating within the country. Within inland means within the country. So they were bringing the produce, they were selling to the people at the port, who could then sell to other countries. This bargain, negotiation is bargaining, and then they were able to sell. The poor producers, they got the work, they got the capital, they got the advance from the merchants, and they were doing. By 1750, this network, which was going on very systematically, the merchants who were supplying the capital as well as collecting the produce, and the weavers who were getting the job of manufacturing, all this slowly collapsed. That trade was operating from the ports Surat, Masulipatam, Hugli. These were the local ports, and this port trade slowly declined. The European companies gradually took over the merchants' job. Now they secured variety of concessions from the local courts. The rulers of the native region, they took a concession or discount from them. They established their trade centers, and we know how they have gained from trade to territory. We studied in the previous classes. Now they took monopoly of trade. No other person can trade. Monopoly, mono, single, poly, trade. They could be the single traders, and the old merchants, they could not operate, and so the ports work declined. Exports from these ports fell dramatically. They were operating in so many countries, that has fallen down. The credit which was given to the weavers, that dried up. The local banks were bankrupt. They were not able to recover. They were in a situation to close down. Bankruptcy, children, means that when we have taken enough of loans, unable to repay, we sell our assets or our property, still we are not able to repay, and we have to close down. And the business was in bankruptcy. That kind of pathetic condition. Last years of the 17th century, gross value of the trade through Surat, 16 million, which was going on. That trade was immense, that went on with the East India Company. What happened to these weavers then? What did they do? After the East India Company established the political power, they tried to eliminate the existing traders and the brokers, and they established a more direct control over the weavers. And here they established the Gomasta. The word Gomasta means a clerk, a paid servant, one of the trusted workers from among them. And that Gomasta, he is having certain qualities. He is paid. First of all, he is paid for his work. He is a paid servant appointed by the company. And this company man, paid servant, he will supervise the weavers and he will collect the supplies and he will examine the quality, whether it is examining is checking the quality, whether it is meeting the international demand or whatever product they want, is it on par with their expectations. Loans were provided for purchasing raw material and to start the production. They produced the cloth, and that produced cloth was to be handed over to the Gomasta. In many weaving villages, there were reports of clashes between the weavers and the Gomastas. When the old Gomasta was there, now when this production was going on, entire family used to be working in this production during the agricultural season. They, because the farm was very less, and after the agricultural season is over, the entire family was involved in this. Previously, the old Gomasta was one among them, very trusted man, very amicable, friendly, cordial, meet the people, find out their problems and supply their needs. But slowly, the new Gomasta, he came from outside. He did not belong to the village and he did not have any long term relations with them. There was no social link also with the village. And so they could not bargain or ask for a price. They felt that they have been exploited for the hard work, the toiling of the family to make the production. They were never paid what they ought to be paid. And there were frequent clashes between the weavers and the Gomastas. The new Gomasta was very, very harsh. He used to beat and torture them. He used to take the sepoys and peons and ill treat them. The same thing is given here. Earlier, supply merchants often belonged to the same village and had a close relationship with the weavers. Close, close relationship with the weavers. The company appointed Gomastas were outsiders. They did not have social link. They attacked arrogantly, marched into the villages with sepoys, peons. Peons are workers, class 4 people who will help us in doing certain things, cleaning, handing over things, movement of goods from one place to another, and all those things. They punished the weavers for delay. If there is a delay, they cannot supply on time, they were punished. They cannot bargain for their price, they cannot ask for a good price for their work, nor they can sell to other buyers. Before they were able to sell and repay, but now it's not possible. Who now they had to sell to the British and accept the low wage which is given by them. In many places, Bengal weavers, Carnatic weavers, the villagers, they thought that this kind of atrocity cannot be accepted, and so they migrated. They revolted to a greater extent, but when they thought that there can be no change, they deserted their villages. Desert children, deserted means leaving and going away to some other place. So that emptiness or voidness which is kill, I mean, which is killing the amicability, friendliness, lively atmosphere, and making it without people is called as deserted. Manchester comes to India as cotton industries developed in England. Industrial groups pressurized the government to impose import duty on the cotton industries, cotton textile, so that Manchester goods could sell in Britain with no competition. Indian cotton was in great demand. There was finer quality and also coarse quality. Coarse is rough quality. That finer quality was in great demand in so many countries. When Indian cotton was going to England, they had a competition. They felt that Indian cotton cannot be competed with their own cotton because this quality was more. So they imposed import duties so that Indian cotton will not go there, and their own cotton will be used for the industry. Also, they persuaded the East India Company to sell the British manufactured goods in Indian market. One thing, two things now: raw material stopped going to their country, England, and the finished goods are also not going, and they cannot sell within the country. If they have to sell in other country, they have to pay more of the customs duty or export duty, and they should allow the machine made goods which are coming from their country into India, and those machine made goods will be sold in India at a low price. So cotton weavers in India faced two problems at the same time. Their export market collapsed, overloaded with Manchester imports, availability of low cost of cotton goods produced by the machines. By the end of the 19th century, factories in India began production flooding, and that was with the machine made goods. They had to compete with the machine made goods. This created a big problem for the weavers. So, in India, also machine made goods started. Machine made goods started coming from England also, and the raw material was not going abroad. So, what can the weavers do? The factories came up to India. In 1854, the first cotton mill was set up in Bombay. In 1855, the first jute mill came up, and in 1862, four cotton mills came up. In 1862, another jute mill also came up. By 1860, the Elgin mill was set up at Kanpur. In 1861, first cotton mill of Ahmedabad was set up. In 1874, the first spinning and weaving mill of Madras began production. The early entrepreneurs, these were the pioneers who started the industrial production or industrialization in India. In Bengal, Sri Dwarkanath Tagore made his fortune in the China trade. In Bombay, Parsis like Dinshaw Petit and Jamshedji Nasirwanji Tata, who built a huge Indian empire, this Indian goods empire in India. After the colonial power came into existence in India, the Indian businessmen were barred from trading with the European goods or with other countries. There was lot of customs duty established. We studied about the Indian Council of Commerce, Chambers of Commerce, Federation of Commerce in the nationalism in India. How these producers faced problem by the British imposition of tax. Jamshedji Shri Dwarakanath. I hope you have a clear cut understanding their investment into the business area. Where did the workers come from? Now, industries came up in India. How did the workers come to work here? In most industrial regions, workers came from districts around. So the districts supplied the workers. The industrialists usually employed a jobber to get the new recruits. The role of a jobber was very, very important. He brought people from his own village. He promised that he will provide them job. He ensured that they will get the job and make them settle during times of financial crisis. He even provided them money, but after they get job, some part of their salary should be given to the jobber. The European managing agencies established tea and coffee plantations, acquiring land at very cheap rates from the colonial market. By the fast this growth of this establishment during the 20th century, first decade of the 20th century, the Swadeshi movement started. That was during the Vande Mataram movement. We know that the foreign goods were boycotted and they wanted the Indian goods only to be used, and so they destroyed the foreign products. From 1906, moreover, the exports of Indian yarn to China declined since the produce from China and Japanese mills now flooded the Chinese market. During the World War I, the British mills were now busy producing to the war needs. Now, Manchester, which was having international hold on the world, now it was supplying to the war needs. Manchester imports which were coming to India from Britain, which were coming into India, they stopped. Now they are producing to the war needs. After the war, during the war, they asked India to produce for them, and India produced saddles, the canvas, the shoes, the leather, many things from the Indian industry moved to the market. And after the war was over, India was able to produce to meet the Indian demand within the country. At the same time, it was holding an important position in the international market. After the World War, Manchester could never ever recapture the position which it had before the war. This is the job. Old and trusted man. The company had believed that this man is going to do all the, he will enable that the company is getting the workers. He brought them from his village, ensured, made it sure that they will get the job. He gave them settlement areas wherever they can live. He provided them time and money. During the times of crisis, he assisted them. He began demanding money and gifts. Once they got the job, they were to give him certain gifts. The peculiarities of the industrial growth. European managing agencies, which dominated the production in India, were interested in certain kinds of products. They established tea and coffee plantations, acquiring land at cheap rates from the government, the colonial government, English East India Company, and invested here in mining indigo and jute. They targeted these areas which were in high demand in their countries. When the Indian businessmen began settling or setting up of their industries in India in the later part of the 19th century. See, 19th century starts from 1801 to 1900. So this a period when they established the industries. By the first decade of the 20th century, a series of changes affected the pattern of industrialization. Industrial groups organized themselves to protect their collective industries. So they established the Federation of Commerce, the Chambers of Commerce to protect their interests, so that the tariff duty, the tax which was collected from them, that should not be very immense, and they should be safeguarded. Some kind of concessions they should be getting. The First World War and the industrial growth which has happened, that growth had a profounding impact. In British, the war production, it was meeting the army, meet their demands, and Manchester imports into India declined because they were supplying to the war needs. Indian mills had vast home market now to supply. The war prolonged and India was called to supply them war needs. New factories came up. They were working in different shifts, multiple shifts, and they were providing to the war needs. They were providing mule saddles, horse saddles, shoes, canvas, many more things which were required in the war. So, the First World War industrial production or growth was a little slow till the First World War. The war created dramatically a new situation with the British mills, and with the British mills busy in the war production to meet the needs of the army, Manchester imports into India declined. We are repeating the same point. We know that the Manchester impact on the internal market has collapsed and Indian market has boomed, and Manchester could never ever recapture the position. Indian industries were growing. Please have a look. India was supplying all these materials: jute bags, army uniforms, tents, leather boots, horse and mule saddles, and many more items which were required during the wartime. These are the pioneers: J.N. Tata, R.D. Tata, R.J. Tata. Yeah, small scale industries predominant now. The smaller industries with less of capital, they also started emerging. Large scale industries formed only a smaller segment of the economy, and most of them were located locally in Bengal, Bihar, sorry, Bombay. In the 20th century, the handicraft industry and the production of the handloom industry has expanded. By the second decade of the 20th century, this period is between, see, 20th century starts from 1901 to 2000. So, second decade, 10 years, first decade, 20 years, second decade. So, by 1920 large scale production has happened, and this is happening in the handicraft industry, and weavers now used looms with fly shuttle. These are all the areas where production was happening. United Province, combining of the Uttarakhand, Delhi region, this total Uttar Pradesh region, Punjab, Bihar, Central Province, Bombay, Bengal, Madras, all these. The production has happened. The fly shuttle could manage large scale production. Previously, the production which was happening in the cotton, say for example the fuller, the stapler, the carding which was happening, that is collecting of thread, then separation of quality, then pleating of the cloth, all these things which was happening in different places, now everything came under one roof, under one supervisor, and the industry has enabled this large scale production. After the production is done, now the goods have to reach the targeted people, so the market for the goods, so how can they appeal to the people? The British manufacturers attempted to take over the Indian market. Their new products are produced. People have to be persuaded, they should be requested, they should be made understood how good the quality is. And so they try to sharpen the minds of the people, create needs for this. Advertising is the only means. Advertisements appeared in newspaper, magazine, hoarding. Hoardings are the large scale banners, children, which you see here during the coming of the new, say, a minister, his photo, his arrival date, and all at the junctures, important roads, you find all this. That is a hoarding. We also have another meaning for hoarding: illegal storage. So, add to that hoardings, street walls, television screens, everywhere now advertisements started coming. These advertisements became a vehicle. Vehicle means here medium. Vehicle means medium. It became the medium to influence the people, to target them, to make them understand, and they should buy the Swadeshi goods. They appealed in the name of the God, God's images, touching the sentiments. When God's images are given, they feel that it is most purest, most pious, most sacred. They used the names of the rulers, connected the needs with their historic events, their cultural events, sharing common culture, ethnicity, background. That and use of these products by their royal figures made them understand that this is used by their royal figures, so it had quality. Using the gods' images showed that the product is very, very good quality. So, in this way, they appealed. And in this image, you see the goddess herself is offering the cloth produced by Ahmedabad mills. So, goddess has given her green signal for this industry that it is very good and people can buy, and people are eagerly taking. So, this touches the sentiments of the people, and they could easily take it. So, the age of industrial industries has meant a major technological change which enabled a fast movement of the goods from one place to another. How this has happened in globalization, we studied. How people moved, we studied in making of the global world. And how the production actually happened, we studied in this chapter. And the making of the new industrial labor workforce, how they were trained, how they were used in different seasons, we have studied here. And so we saw reformation of hand technology and the small scale production. They had to compete with the larger industries, and their gain and their survival for sustenance also we have seen in this chapter. This presentation was made by my own student G. Madhav, excellent in technology, the boy. I take delight in explaining this chapter. Dear children, you have any doubts, any queries, you can please text me. One more chapter of history I will be coming up, and all the material is ready. We will be discussing and revising for our boards. Thank you so much for listening. God bless you all. Please study well and make yourself an achiever. Make your parents proud, make your school proud, everyone proud. God bless you. Bye.